Lawyers say that this isn't the first incident involving the arresting officer in the Columbia County Sheriff's Office.
Welcome to I Just Have Something to Say. We have a follow-up story where now we're hearing that a lawsuit's coming from Columbia County Sheriff deputies who arrested a blind man. And we're going to find out that it looks like this isn't the first time at the rodeo for one of these deputies violating someone's civil rights. Let's take a look at this news video and see what we got.
A Jacksonville lawyer says he wants the Department of Justice to step in and investigate the Columbia County Sheriff's Office for civil rights violations that is stemming from this video.
What is your suspicion?
It looks like you're carrying a gun in your back pocket. I'm stopping to make sure you're carrying it properly.
Have you ensured that it's not a firearm?
No, you keep turning so I can't see it.
As I mentioned in my previous videos, I've been concealed carrying for over 20 years and I've carried in many states. There is no way that this deputy could have ever believed that that was a weapon. And the reason why I state that is because if she reasonably believed that that person had a weapon in her back pocket and he immediately reached back for it and pulled it out, she would have reacted much, much differently. Very good chance that he might even gotten shot or even possibly killed. There is no way that she thought that was a weapon. You can tell by the video and her body language and her reaction. You can hear by her voice. There was no escalation of her anxiety. There was no escalation in her tenor. Nothing. There is no way that she thought that that was a weapon for one flat second. She saw an easy target that she could harass, and she did it. And I do believe the Department of Justice should look into this.
Lawyers say the man you just saw is legally blind and was illegally detained for carrying a walking stick. Police apparently thought it was a gun.
And Tarek Miner is joining us now after monitoring today's news conference. Tarek.
Yeah, and lawyers for Hodges say that he was unlawfully arrested in Lake City. The entire incident was captured on police body camera video as the legally blind man was walking home from jury duty. Now, lawyers say that this isn't the first incident involving the arresting officer in the Columbia County Sheriff's Office.
What's this in your back pocket? I just saw you walking it.
It's a navigational aid. What's the problem? You a tyrant?
Yeah, I am actually. What's your...
You know you have a problem as a law enforcement officer when conservatives like myself, who support the police normally, who are law-abiding, pro-two-way, have to take a step back and go, wow, you're just out of line. Where's your de-escalation skills? When somebody asks you, are you a tyrant? And you, without missing a beat, say, yeah, I am. You need to take a step back and look at your career choices and really ask yourself, are you suited for the job?
Your name and date of birth?
I don't have to give that unless
yes, sir. I was investigating.
You have reasonable.
Do you want me to put you in handcuffs right now?
The situation escalates quickly between Lake City resident James Hodges, who is legally blind, and Officer Jamie Goad with the Columbia County Sheriff's Office. Hodges is eventually taken into custody, even though his folded-up navigational aid was not a weapon.
It looks like you're carrying a gun in your back pocket. I'm stopping to make sure you're carrying it properly.
Have you ensured that it's not a firearm?
No, you keep turning so I can't see it. You don't have to be a to me.
Well, you're being one to me.
This, show him, Jim. This is not a weapon. This is an aid to a man who's legally blind. And by him merely displaying it and showing, okay, you were wrong, Jamie Goad. You were wrong. This isn't a gun. That should have been the end of the encounter.
Attorney John Phillips, who's representing Hodges, says Goad violated his constitutional rights. Hodges says he had a right to fight back.
It is the law in Florida that you are supposed to resist unlawful orders. So I made up my mind to properly, legally, and as maturely as possible, given the circumstances, to fight back.
We'll say this, I am not an attorney, but common sense would dictate that if you have a concern with the police officer's conduct, fight it in the courtroom. Make sure you take the time to understand your rights before you ever get into an encounter. Keep calm. Even though we understand that police officers will violate your rights, you must keep calm, file a report in a timely manner, and follow the procedures of the court and of the law. Never, ever, ever fight them in the street. You will always lose. Even if you're right, you will always lose.
with the only tools that I have.
During the October incident, Hodges took his issue to an on-scene supervisor.
Sir, what she stopped you for? For a walking stick.
So-
And it could look like a weapon. She asked you to
Really?
present it, okay?
Now she's asking me for ID.
Okay.
I don't need the ID unless there's reasonable articulated suspicion.
After Hodges is handcuffed, he tells Sergeant Harrison and Officer Goad that he's legally blind. The confrontation doesn't end there, though, as Hodges is accused of resisting arrest.
Was that hard?
It's going to be. I want your name and your badge
You
number.
know, I put him in jail for resisting.
Okay.
Now, I will be frank and state that I have a high level of disdain for the sergeant of this deputy. Putting a blind man in jail because he questioned you, he wanted to file a complaint, he was questioning you why you were violating his civil rights. Is that the sum of your career experience, the sum of the leadership and training you received at your department? The people of your community deserve better. The people of that community of Columbia County should demand a resignation of that sheriff. His apology to the people of his community was absolutely pathetic. And because he's a weak leader, you could see later in this video that there have been many complaints and there have been many questions about the conducts of the department. Leadership sets the tone. There's no excuses. The people of the community should vote this man out, if not demand his resignation sooner.
Hodges was charged with resisting an officer and spent more than 24 hours behind bars. The charges were eventually dropped, but lawyers suspect a pattern of abuse.
I've heard countless stories about wrongdoing with the sheriff's office.
And again, one of the biggest things we all have to face as citizens, whether you're pro law enforcement or have serious issues with law enforcement or sit somewhere in between like myself, when bad officers get away with civil rights violations, sooner or later it's going to come to a head. And the citizens of that community are the ones that pay for it. We all should be striving for safer communities, safer and more professional police officers and law enforcement officers throughout our community, and give them the equipment and the training that they need to be successful at their jobs.
So following an investigation, the sheriff's office did discipline both officers with short suspensions and additional training. Lawyers say Officer Goad, who arrested Hodges, also used excessive force during a separate 2020 arrest. It's unclear whether or not the Department of Justice will be investigating the Columbia County Sheriff's Office. Kent?
Should the Department of Justice look into this? I don't know. I'm not a law enforcement officer, but I am a law-abiding citizen and demand more from my law enforcement officers in my community. I don't think it's unreasonable for somebody to say, hey, wait a minute, let's take a step back. There's been numerous complaints. This obviously is an egregious civil rights violation. Is there a systemic problem within this department? Just because we're pro-law enforcement doesn't mean that we cannot be objective and call out the bad apples. If we don't, then we're really not helping the situation, and we're really not trying to improve the situation for the least among us, the most vulnerable. For those that hate the police department and don't want anything to do with it, if we don't take a proactive step and say, hey, I hear and see what you're saying, and we're going to work with you to get rid of the bad apples, things are never going to get better. There are damn good law enforcement agencies and damn good law enforcement out there, and these bad apples make them all look bad. Thank you for visiting. I just have something to say. Please like and subscribe and hit that notification bell and share this video with a friend. Thank you.